You're all very welcome to the final stretch of our EIT Health UK Ireland Startup Toolbox webinar series. As if we planned it, our final week is all about building your brand and sales and getting your solutions out there, having taken all of the other steps outlined in the previous weeks. Ala will be popping the link to the last webinar into the chat there, if you want to join that one. Today we're very happy to be joined by Dr. Adam Gill. Adam's a graduate of the University of Liverpool with a PhD in community participation, looking at participation theory and ethnography, the lived experience of why we as people do the things that we do. Adam's worked with founders to apply this to understanding customer insights. He is the founder of Wilding Health, which helps health and wellness organizations create positive change from strategy to delivery, helping you shape your message, share your mission, and solve the health and wellness issues your customers face. Adam is also a mentor in the Mentoring and Coaching Network. So if you wish to avail of his services formally through that mechanism, we can help connect you to Adam and to all of our mentors. I'm going to stop talking and hand over to Adam, and he's going to teach you all about health branding, marketing, and behavior change. Over to you, Adam.
Thanks, Rosemary. What a lovely, warm welcome. And yes, I am an EIT mentor as well, and I've worked with people on this topic. I've actually presented this as a live workshop in both Dublin and Nuremberg with various activities to do sort of participatory version of this, but now we're online, so there's a lot of me seeing a picture of myself and not of others, which is quite strange. So I'd welcome you to get involved, participate. We've got the raised hand option, which you can use if perhaps we ask a direct question, or if you want to ask a question. There's a Q&A feature as well. We've also got the live polling, which I'll use a couple of times just to get a bit of a flavour and an essence of the session. So maybe we can just test the raised hand option first of all. Who had too many quizzes in lockdown? Let's try a raised hand. Yeah, thanks guys. A couple of people, three, looks like most people. I ran a quiz and people ended up telling me not to do it anymore, so that's fair enough. I also had enough of quizzes. Who has business uniform on top and pajama bottoms on the bottom? Got to be honest. Yeah, good. Thanks, guys. I love the honesty. And my last question, just to check the raised hands. Who else is sitting currently in tons of rain? Because I am. Right, pretty much everyone's raining. Got it. Okay, so this presentation, I'll share my screen so we can see the presentation. And here we are. So this is the presentation. Hopefully everyone can see this. And actually, let's use the raise hand option. Can everyone see this? Yay, great, fantastic, thank you. So we've got three general sections here. A kind of a general discussion about the topic of branding, marketing, behaviors, insights, and things like that. A little bit more specific as a kind of a general second section, and then some actions that you can take. We'll try to do some of those actions and activities here. And if not, I'll set you them as homework, and I'll follow up with, obviously we're being recorded today. This video should be available later, but I've used, for the purposes of being able to do a participatory exercise, gloriouscreative.co.uk. I've got a fantastic DIY brand workshop pack, and I've included that as an element of the later part of today, and that link will be sent out to you as well. And later on, I've got a proprietary and something that we've used and adapted to help you work through your brand storytelling framework. So you should walk away today with lots of applicable knowledge. One last bit of notification from me is you may hear a couple of barks from a puppy next door. So I apologize if you do hear that, but at the moment it sounds like he's asleep. So that's fantastic. So as I said, this workshop's all about brand, and really what I've recognized and what I've seen, the reason that Wilding was formed was based on various of my own experiences, having worked across many different fields, from kitchen chefing, youth working, labouring, government researcher, PhD, working in the NHS for NHS England, and then working for pharmaceutical companies and also in advertising, bringing together my core skills as an ethnographer or a healthcare anthropologist, but also understanding behaviours and how to change them. And more recently, having worked with the IT as a mentor, which has brought all these things together to help people, particularly startups, to understand what it is that you are as a brand. You may not already see yourself as a brand, but hopefully by the end of this, you'll see the importance as to why that's important and why you'd market yourself as such. Bit about us, effectively, we are a health and wellness brand purpose and marketing consultancy, driven by deep insight, behavior change, and brilliant creative. And we know that health and wellness is absolutely the most important thing in people's lives. And if you, as startups in health and wellness and so on, aren't seeing yourself as changing the world by changing people's lives, then hopefully this webinar should help you to get there a bit more. We know that there aren't many agencies like us that work in this world to help shout about the amazing benefits that health organizations bring to people's lives. And we know that they deserve better. But one of the absolute core points to this presentation, this webinar, is that the best way to help people change and become healthier and more active as customers is to make them feel, to connect, and be part of something. So basically today, here we are, the objectives are listed here. How to act and think like a brand, understanding your customers' needs a bit more clearly, how to improve your marketing and communication to customers, including potentially some homework for you, and you can always follow up with me afterwards. How harnessing that patient experience and those behaviors can drive sales, actually, ultimately. We're going to go on a wild journey of understanding and creativity together, hopefully. It's the webinar format, but let's still make it interesting and exciting. And you should leave with this great applicable knowledge of how to position yourself with customers and what stories to tell. So I'm going to trial my polling system here, which I've used for the first time today, and I'm going to launch this, and please respond. Share results. Okay. Pretty much everybody, apart from one attendee, voted. That's fine. Looks like we're covering everything that everyone would like to cover off, which is great. Thanks. Yeah, so moving on. The key points that I want to get across to you, which will flow through this webinar today, are that people increasingly look to the world and navigate their world as a consumer, as a customer, through the world of brands. If we think about something as simple about going to buy a toothpaste, we've probably at some point been sold the benefits and have become accustomed to a certain brand of toothpaste, and that brand probably stands for some pretty obvious elements to us, like it's a particularly minty flavor. It cleans our teeth particularly well. It may whiten our teeth. Pretty simple elements backed up by advertising around science and particular advertising motifs. A very simple example. We can also go into the understanding of brands a little bit more in depth. That key brands that we can that we think of immediately in our lives for things like cars, clothing, makeup and beauty. So we're quite, I would like to say, we're quite kind of saturated with choice around brands, but brands have kind of developed as something that stands beyond the product that they offer. They stand for meaning beyond. So if you think about Nike, when Nike first launched, they made a trainer, and it was different to other trainers. But they soon realized that association with other athletes and successful athletes would give them a gravitas and a quality by association. And you can see that now all the way through the Nike Air Jordan and the LeBron James in NBA, and also the association with Olympic athletes and things like that. But the meaning that's produced by companies and organizations and brands like that in a multinational way have moved even beyond words. The swoosh itself stands for something beyond comprehension, that's just become part of our everyday. Brands produce an emotional reaction. So if you think about brands you hate right now, I won't ask you who they are, or brands that you really love, why do we have such emotional reactions towards them? You know, Nike may make us think more successfully. So I definitely need to do more running. So I bought some Nike trainers because I think I'm going to do more running. I probably won't, but I thought it when I bought them. Other reactions that I get from other brands, you know, some I completely loathe, others I really love. But one of the things that they do, and we'll cover this off a little bit more, is that brands really kind of are able to create, but then harness and use the belief that they've created. There are some really obvious brands in this, but probably less so in health and healthcare and life sciences, although there are some key consumer health brands that we know of. So for me, it's this social currency, this cultural kind of movement that surrounds itself by brands. The sorts of brands that I'll list in this are really obvious ones, because I think that we should be thinking about health in a more global sense, and it will help us to see where we are and where we need to get towards, because in my view, there's no reason why any one of your startups or anyone working in health shouldn't aim as large as some of these household brand names. So let's just start with, let's just go back a step before we jump into that and launch the second poll. Let's launch this. Do you see yourself as a poll? No, not a poll, a brand, sorry. And it's okay not to know, it's okay to say no. Please don't feel like you have to say yes because we're doing this session. I can't see who's who, but it's an interesting mix that most people do see themselves as a brand. And we'll cover off a little bit more about let's just share these results, that most people here do believe that they're a brand. But let's move on from that and back into the presentation. That's really interesting to me. Many presentations that I've done, people haven't seen themselves as a brand, perhaps because they don't see themselves as equal to some of the large brands. But given some of the early explanations, it's great to see that people already are. So we're already part of the way there. But one of the first things is, I finished the previous slide to say that it's all about belief. People stopped believing in Kodak when they realized they no longer needed them in their day-to-day life because of the launch of digital cameras and smartphones. Very, very few people now use film, and as a result, Kodak almost disappeared overnight. Other brands that disappeared include people like Blockbuster. Maybe not everyone can remember Blockbuster, but Blockbuster are obviously the VHS and then DVD rental store where people would go on a Friday night and get a film and watch that. Blockbuster disappeared because they didn't see the emergence of online streaming. Kodak disappeared partly because they didn't understand and harness the power of smartphone technology. Other examples include Coca-Cola initially missed out on coconut water. They didn't do their trend analysis and their trend scan to understand that coconut water would be such a ginormous market leader, and they've since bought into that. So the point here is not to get left behind, and it's this thing that people really want to be part of certain things. If you haven't read this book, apologies for the low quality of this picture. If you haven't read this book, The Tipping Point, it's a really interesting insight into why certain ideas tip over into popularity and others, and he talks about things like older technologies like the fax machine. Not many people had a fax machine, and then tons of people had a fax machine. The reason being that the idea of it didn't make sense at the start, and you have these early adopters, as we now know them, and there are 3 types of people who are responsible for getting these ideas to tip. And the reason I share this is that you will have people like this in your network who you may not know about at this point. You may have people who are early adopters and lovers of your brand and your services. And it's really important to work with those people in your communities, and/or definitely actually creating community as part of your brand, so that you can harness people who want to belong. They want to promote you. They want to connect you to other people. And in doing so, it helps you to spread, as Gladwell talks about here, a little bit more like wildfire, particularly if you've got a sticky idea. And he gives the example here of there are certain ideas that just aren't that sticky. They don't stick in one's mind. Think about the term Googling. When we first heard it, I remember thinking it was nonsense, and I just did an online search. And eventually we've changed our language now to adopt the word Googling. So this is a great book. I'm going to do a raised hand option straw poll here, and we can see who here had the iPhone 1, who here had the iPhone 2 or 3. A few for the 3, the 4, and then 5, and then 6, and then look, you see the point, right? I mean, obviously they dropped off after the 6. Not everyone wanted the iPhone anymore. And then right up to now, who's got the most recent iPhone? Well, that just demonstrates to me that people have gone off Apple. But the point being here is that, thanks for everyone for raising their hands, is that when you can create a movement behind something, and Apple have done that really well, although they've definitely lost a market share more recently. Many people clamber to get it. So I know for me that around the time of the iPhone 4, 5, 6, I was ready to jump on that bandwagon, because I just saw this as a revolutionary piece of technology, and I absolutely wanted to get involved. Other brands, has anyone here heard of this brand? It's pretty big in the UK. I don't know how it rolls in the rest of the in many other places, but so here, Supreme are effectively a label that put their logo onto clothing largely, but many other products as a result. And their main business model is that they've created a community of scarcity and frenzy, in the sense that many people want this stuff because it sells out so quickly. So I've walked around Soho in London and seen the line, the queue go right round maybe twice, and people having to police the queues because people are desperate to get their hands on this stuff. It also ties into this new cultural kind of development that people want to show their stuff off online, and there are new ways of expressing kind of cultural capital by having the most recent releases of, say, Supreme or Nike trainers or whatever else. This is, as I said, this is a more general discussion about branding, but from their point of view, this is about generating scarcity, equaling in frenzy, also accelerating that tipping point. All of this still happens because, as Seth Godin talks about, we're still tribal. We still fit in to certain pockets, and brands know this. And tribes are effectively communities in which we see and identify and acknowledge ourselves as part of. And I've helped various organizations in health to understand their communities and help them to work with or harness the community to drive the messages and the benefits that sit behind their service or product. So it could be that what you need to do is, and I talk a little bit later with permission with somebody that I took through the mentoring process, and helped them to understand their community and harness their community, and they had a very active community online and helped them. So if we can add value to people's lives, people want to add value to the brand's life because they're part of something. So there's something here about we kind of need the leadership, and in this instance it may just be the method of communication, i.e. an online forum around a particular condition or disease area or pathway, and that you're providing the solution, and you may just be checking in with people and asking them about how you can improve their lives. The more that you provide those communication and spaces to participate, the more people get behind you. And again, I'm going to use an example here that's separate to health, but there's a cycling clothing brand in the UK called Rafa. And Rafa have got a cycling club thing, and Nike do a run club as well app. And effectively, the only thing that the club does is put people in touch with other people, and you can buy very expensive jerseys that have RCC on them, which stands for Rafa Cycling Club. And so it's giving people those opportunities to participate that kind of enables people to really shout about what it is that you do and support you and generate other fans. So yeah, people really care from a place from their heart, particularly if you know, people have a kind of a purpose and a belonging, and you know, want to kind of, I would suggest that you enable those super participants who share knowledge and generate action. Because yeah, so I want to just share this little video here about a very interesting video. I suggest you turn your volume down very slightly just in case it blurts out. This is, for me, a really great example for about 3 minutes about how we can create movement. Okay, I think we get the essence of that video now. I just want to kind of launch this next poll and ask you all, do you feel like you engage with your community currently? It's really interesting. Right, so let's end the poll there and we'll share the results. So pretty much 92% of you, we've got one respondent here who says a lot, which is really interesting, really useful to hear. And most people are engaging with people on social media. There's there's a lot that can be done to engage and to work with your community. It can sometimes be about involving them in development. It can be about sharing your ideas with them. It can be about having members of your community to act as expert patients and so on to help you refine what it is that you do. But in general, it's, I believe, something more, and it's about having people get involved from a kind of an emotional point of view. But before we get into this next bit, this purpose-driven bit, we've got a Q&A button. And Claudio, yeah, I will share the link to this video later on, and it will be on the, it's linked at the bottom of the page as well. But if anyone's got any questions at this point, let's get into this now, before we move on. The other thing I was going to mention at this point about community is kind of empowering and working with patient groups associated with what it is that your brand helps with, and kind of helping to work with them, and it can become a reciprocal process. And also, let's not forget the healthcare professionals. These are people that should be shouting about your product or service and looking to use it and may even benefit them. So, you know, this isn't just sort of lifestyle brands that we've talked about here. It's about, you know, bringing people on board. I'm going to ask the next poll before I get into this next one and see what you think. I'm interested to know, do you have brand purpose? Okay, right, I'll end it there. So that's amazing that people are more purposeful than Patagonia, over 50%. That's really cool. I can't wait to learn more about that. Of course, we talk about what it means, and some say no. I think that everybody here has some sort of purpose. I've cited this guy here, and I recommend you sign up to the Do Lectures online. It's an ideas festival that's free for you to watch videos from various makers and so-called mavericks, people who do different things, and generally for a purpose, something that they see. They can kind of see, you know, that there's something beyond what it is that they do. So you may offer a product or service, but not talk about the actual benefits that happen for people's lives. You may talk about the return on investment. You may talk about your USP, but you may miss out on the elements of you know, what it is that you've enabled people to do beyond your service. So, for example, you may create such a scenario that people are able to live their lives and do things that they weren't able to do before, which is a ginormous thing. And your brand purpose may align to that beyond the product and service. I've got some questions here. How can we enhance but not annoy the community? Or is there a chance that you can annoy your community? Where are the risks? Well, it all depends. Thanks for the question. It all depends, I think, on how you engage with your community and understand your community. So for me, first of all, one of the key things that you need to do is to do a little bit of insight research, market research into your customers and communities, and understand where they already exist, where they go, what they do, what would benefit them, and then add value to that. So it may just be providing more information, it may be providing forums, it may be physical things, maybe actual, you know, face-to-face things. These days, of course, more online. So let me just get rid of that question. Thank you. How do you create a community when you need to reach out to multiple types of people? Again, I think it's about understanding who they are. So if you have to reach out to clinicians and NHS decision makers, and they all care about different things, I think that you will find common ground for all of your audiences and your your participants, your customers. So one of the things is that I'll talk about a little bit later on as well, is even though you may be reaching out to clinicians and decision makers, they all care about the patient and the patient benefit. So aligning people around the patient benefit and having patients share their experience of the benefit will bring people together. An anonymous attendee, how can you avoid accusations of business cynicism while you build your community, particularly in health? I think it's about adding genuine value to people's lives and reflecting the genuine lived experiences and genuine benefits that you've brought to people's lives. Okay, so let's move on. Thanks very much for those questions. So a little bit more about purpose. I appreciate that it sounds easier in brands that aren't working in health, but believe me, there are brands and organizations that are adopting all of these mechanisms to genuinely reflect the lived benefits of people for people in their lives. So this chap, David Hyatt, founded this Ideas Festival to do lectures. And for him, the most important brands in the world that make you feel something. And to do that, they have to be something that makes you want to change. And as customers, we can be part of that change. So if you imagine you're all working in some particular treatment or disease area or within some part of the life sciences, you have to bring out the human element of it that makes sense to everybody. So some people have said there's a bit of a, sometimes there's a clinical world that we need to make sense in it, but I know that the unifying factor in all of that, in my experience in NHS England and with different companies, is the patient and the benefit. But it's these companies have a reason to exist over and above just to make profit. They actually have a purpose. You've got to imagine that the internet now, particularly what we're doing, the internet has eliminated geography. It's about fighting and not fighting, but standing out amongst so much of the kind of the noise of people trying to get our attention. And we can do that by bringing the human purpose behind it. Other purposeful businesses in the world include Apple, obviously Patagonia, Tesla, and these have all got ambitions, so-called, to make the world a better place. And that should really come out in your USP. I talked about this a particular brand, which I think has really nailed a lot of this stuff. And we did a little bit of work together with a mentoring arrangement. And this organization moved from organization doing an incredible job with an amazing story, founder story, who suffers from HS, to working, smashing the social media campaigns, engaging their audience, having a fantastic newsletter for inbound marketing purposes, and an amazing product launch. And I think that there's a purpose-driven element to Hydromed and Hydroware, because people can see the founder telling her story about how the disease affected her and what can be done to improve it, but also bringing people into the decision-making process and participating in this. I'm aware that I am rattling on quite a long time now, so I'll try and wrap it up a little bit faster than I am. But brands will survive and thrive if your customers believe in you and trust in you. There's a lot of experimental and experiential kind of platforming now, whether people engage with their brand through social media or whether people are experiencing the brand. A bit before, let's just talk a little bit more about pre-COVID world, when you had brands like, say, Nespresso or Mac, where you'd go into the stores and experience the product or service. And that's really elevated that kind of that game-changing element of engaging in the brand beyond simply just passively consuming it and things like that. And one of the key things that I've just touched on with answering some of the other questions is you really need to get into the whys and the hows of people's lives. I'm an ethnographer, which is effectively an anthropological research method, and I've spent a lot of time understanding patients and healthcare people and their experiences to help brands and companies and the NHS and other people to understand what it is that they need to do differently. So I recommend thinking along those qualitative lines to collect as much insight about your customers as you possibly can, to then build a bit more meaning towards those people. And we can talk a bit more about that later on, and I'm happy to take any questions on that later on. We've got a few key sort of more practical bits coming up as well. So this is again a brand that kind of really understands their brand purpose, their comms planning, their social media strategy, their newsletter marketing, and so on. Another health company that really understands these things well, I believe, is and have positioned themselves really well are Babylon. Now, Babylon are very much a B2B, although it would appear a B2C market-driven company. The reason that they've done so well with application and engagement and traction in the market is that they've absolutely got a mission, and it's about bringing health to you, but not just in this country, but internationally as well. And I know that Ali Parsa has got this mission to improve health by bringing health to people where they are in sort of developing countries as well. So when you're looking to appeal to your market, it doesn't matter how big your movement is. It's important to kind of generate some sort of movement behind your brand, and look at the insights and the things that will improve people's lives, and collect those insights on your customers. But no matter who you're selling to, it's super important to sell the human story first. Talk about how it touches, changes, and improves people's lives, and then sell your business impact and return on investment. Because if you can do these things well, and you can market these things well, likely even before you've got to speak to the commissioner, say at the NHS, for example, or the buyer, they're likely to have heard of you before because you've promoted the human story, because it touches people and it generates great attraction than simply the business impact or return on investment. Many of you may have seen this slide already. It's effectively about taking time, building relationships, and generating trust. And I really believe that if we can do these four things, then this should be a lot easier. The sales process, the sales funnel should be a lot easier. I'm going to launch the last poll now, I think. Hang on. Yes. Do you have a USP? Do you know what your USP is? Pretty much 100%. It's amazing. Thanks for those that participated. We're smashing it. That's amazing. So somebody there's reached out for some help. That's fine. Great. Let's talk about that a little bit more. Your proposition is something that requires quite a lot of refining, and it's something that I've done as a mentor, and I've worked through quite a lot with different mentees via the EIT, but also as a company through Wilding, and it's something that you have to spend quite a lot of time with. Some people have really landed their proposition. You kind of have to start with a bit of a vision. You have to do a bit of brand purpose stuff to understand who you are, understand your mission a little bit more, understand what you stand for. But ultimately, it comes down to these few questions. What problems do you solve? And that doesn't just need to be simply we improve clinician response rates by X amount. It's that you improve clinicians' lives so that they can deliver better services that mean that people live for longer and better. Who is it you do it for? Often people hear, and we've done this in as a live workshop, people have drawn their customer out, and it's a really useful exercise to sort of draw your customer in, who you think they are in the setting that they exist in. And often people have drawn the commissioner or the clinician, but I've gotten to think a little bit more about, actually, it's potentially the patient's children, because you're improving the patient's life and therefore the children's life. You have to think about the problems that you're solving beyond all of this. I will send out this brand storytelling framework that we use with clients and with mentees to help you to sort of really shape down your what problems you think you solve, and for who, how, and what makes you so amazing, so you can really work through your USP, develop some messaging, and look at how you can take advantage of your positioning to be able to develop the most awesome USP. Are there any questions on this so far? Okay, great. We'll carry on. Don't worry if there are questions, we can bring them up later as well. And we're going to move forward. Where have I gone? Yes. So I'm just going to talk through the kind of the 7 steps. And I've referenced here a really, for the purposes of this workshop, another agency called Glorious Creative, and this is available on their website. There's a link below. They talk through, I'm just going to talk through the various steps here. This is an amazing tool to use, and do use it in collaboration with our brand storytelling framework as well. So the first step is to establish your brand purpose, which is the deciding factor as to why someone chooses you over another brand, but it's all about authenticity. So customers need to believe that it's true to you, but also customers, and you're genuine. You're not just pretending, because people really smell the BS from a mile away. What's your brand vision? They've listed a few interesting ones here. So like the Alzheimer's Association here, our vision is a world without Alzheimer's disease. Instagram, our vision is to capture and share the world's moments. So it's something beyond who you are and what it is that you want as a kind of a key business benefit. The third bit is all about understanding what it is, you're on a mission. I think many people will probably be quite good at this from what I've understood from the responses to the polls. How do you do it? Why do you do it? Who do you do it for? And how does it help them? There's a couple of examples on here as well. eBay, by providing a global trading platform where practically anyone can trade practically anything. Really clear mission. Starbucks, by inspiring and nurturing the human spirit, one person, one cup, one neighborhood at a time. And then we move into brand values. What is it that you really stand for? How can you set yourself against them? So, for example, they've listed a few here from IKEA's core values: humbleness and willpower, leadership by example, daring to be different, togetherness and enthusiasm. There are various things that you can do here to get this done. If you follow these various steps, your brand will become super clear. And if you do the brand storytelling workshop, you should be able to walk away with a very clear set of brand, which you'd put these together into what's called a brand book. You'd use them and they'd go into all areas about what you do. So your brand personality, are you down to earth, honest, fun? Are you more serious and conservative? There's a part on the brand storytelling framework where you can come up with that as well, and some sort of descriptors. Your brand personality, so I think you're kind of getting clear about what that would look like. But then establishing your target audience, it's kind of the classification. It's not just defining people in classifications like A, B, C1, C2. It's kind of a lot more about who they are, what they do, why they do what they do. Are they just the buyers? Are the people that benefit behind the buyers? And then the absolute most exciting bit, and I've worked with many people on this many times, is this kind of this position statement. Who are we? What is it that we want to do? How do we talk to our audiences? And how do we absolutely achieve this for them? So, are there any questions before I move on to the next slide? There's a lot in that one. We've got a question here. Do you change your story in accordance with the market and customer segmentation? Yes, interesting. Now, thanks, Andrew Cohen, for asking that question. I would suggest that you run through these 7 steps, and as a team or as the founder or whoever's involved, and stick true to those things. How you then talk to different people, you may tell different elements of the story to those people. So of course, customers aren't particularly interested in your return on investment, but they are interested in the human benefit, et cetera, and things can be interchangeable. Your brand mission and your values may not be that interesting to a commissioner, but your kind of target audience and positioning statement maybe, for example. So I do think it's important to mix it up. But if you've got this overall brand feel, purpose, vision, mission, values, you should stick to those things in all of your communications and positioning beyond that. So we're going to talk a little bit now about behavior change. I'm just aware of time. I think we're doing okay. So the thing that you need to understand is that behavior change can exist. So all of you in some ways are changing behaviors with your products and services, and therefore you're improving people's lives. you have to really start with understanding people, your customers, the end users, finding their problems using deep human insight, like things using qualitative insight and things like ethnography. You need to meet their emotional needs potentially and empathize with the meaning they've created or associated with. So what happens within particular communities and cultures? So you can almost draw these concentric circles around who are your customers, where do they go, what do they do, what do they believe in, what are they interested in. You then service their problems with those things in mind. Look to disrupt those behaviors, to improve those behaviors. Potentially you're providing a service that will improve healthy behaviors, or maybe it won't. Maybe you can innovate and do more to disrupt those and improve those unhealthy behaviors. And then draw on those communities to empower them to become a movement that inspires people that they can connect with, particularly by being purpose driven, but making sure that you're remaining relevant. Don't become Kodak, don't become Blockbuster, and then continually review to do these things. So I'm not sure how long we've got left with this session. So what I'm going to do is send the brand storytelling framework out after this, alongside the Glorious Creative DIY brand package, which I think is useful for all of you. And I think you might just want to spend 5 minutes now doing this as a little exercise. Rosemary can or Alec can jump in and say if you think it's not a good idea, but I do think we might spend just 5 or so minutes with you guys working on this piece before we take any final questions and answers. Just to mention that it looks like Rosemary's dropped in a fantastic USP type sentence into the chat box.
It's hard to do it in a sentence, Adam.
Obviously taken you some time to do it. I thought it was great.
I had to hyphenate every word in it. I've never seen a sentence with more hyphens.
Thanks, Rosemary. Does anybody else fancy sharing what they do? Obviously, no judgment here. We're just looking at, you know, where you've got to with that. If everyone wants to ask any questions about it, please do. Feel free to drop it into the chat box if you don't want to say it.
So if you want, you can share with panelists and attendees, or you can just share with panelists. If you want, you can raise your hand and we'll call on you to respond. And if you want us to edit this out when we release the webinar onto YouTube, you can just sort of put anonymous or confidential or something like that in your text.
Thanks, Rosemary.
Although why you would give up all that free YouTube advertising, I just don't know.
Well, it's okay. Perhaps we've got the, here we are, Susan Kelly. Respiratory Analytics is the digital platform that helps control respiratory conditions to improve lives. I really like that, Susan. I like that it describes what you're doing and the problem that you're solving. I wonder whether you may also be able to think a little bit about the impact beyond. So how does it improve lives? There may be a particular take. I'm not saying there is. It's also a very hard thing to do very quickly, but you may want to just add in a bit more of the human benefit because it's technical and it works. I just think that's a very good one, just to add a little bit of value to that one. Thank you. Okay, perhaps what we'll do next is we will move to the Q&A. Right, Andrew's got a great point here, and in doing it before, it's kind of keeping the sentence to kind of a tweet size. It's a good discipline to be able to kind of keep it down to a few characters. Thanks very much for that. Okay, what we'll do perhaps is move to this next bit. Please take a note here. If anyone wants to book in and we can have a quick brand surgery, or we can talk about your USP very briefly, and if there's anything that I can do to help. Obviously, I'm listed as a mentor. If anyone needs any help in that way, always happy to help. Has anybody got any particular live issues to do with anything that we've spoken about, or any questions that I may have missed or I could clarify for you? One question that I've got is, I guess some people are often concerned about doing this on a budget. Many companies can, struggle to make a marketing budget available at an early stage, depending on the stage of your startup and any investment that you've got. Much of this, as you've already seen, many people have already said that they are engaging online and using social media. I think it's absolutely essential to have a social media channel. Many people use LinkedIn. I think that's okay, but it's not enough. I think that I would certainly promote that people use a social media channel that maybe moves beyond Facebook, potentially like Instagram. And people may go, but what would I put onto Instagram? Have a look, do your research. There's lots of people using it creatively to showcase their brand and what they stand for. Questions come in here. Do I have any good ideas for balancing stealth mode plus no product yet on the market with creating a community? I think it's all about understanding the problems that you solve, that your product will solve eventually. I guess it's in development. So what is it that you solve, but also looking to add value and enhance the benefit of the patient groups that you're looking to work with in the future and or clinicians in the future. So working with other communities that exist around those end users and buyers potentially, to perhaps give them more information or means of communication, and work within those communities first of all before launching your product. I think that's a good idea. Rosemary said here that Facebook can be much more common in continental Europe other than the UK and in Ireland. So that's worth mentioning as well. It's not to say that it doesn't work. It can be a very useful tool, particularly for communities and developing communities. Okay, are there any other questions? Great. Well, what I'll say is we'll follow up with the link to the Glorious Creative DIY brand packet and the brand storytelling framework that we use. And please feel free to drop me a line on this email address should you wish to have another conversation.
Thank you so much, Adam. That was absolutely fascinating as always. Your work really speaks to my humanities core, and it's always wonderful to hear how we can apply this psychology to the healthcare startup world. Thank you everybody for your attention, for your questions. Adam is at your disposal via the Mentoring and Coaching Network. He's coached a lot of our startups as they prepare to kind of launch their brand. But I think what I would caution as well is just to start thinking about it now. It's not something you have to wait to do. It's something that you should be crafting now. And we've seen some brilliant case studies of people engaging early and engaging Adam early, and really creating these fabulous movements through the medical world. Thank you all. Have a wonderful Wednesday. We had a bank holiday this week. It's Wednesday, isn't it? And hopefully we'll see lots of you back tomorrow for the last Startup Toolbox webinar. Thank you.
Thanks.